Hey everyone, it's Chris at Lime Punch Forge. So I'm going to make a pendant, but that's not really what this video is going to be about. Today's video is going to be about failure. Failure, disappointment, all those kind of things. Either when it comes to sales, when it comes to what you're doing, when it comes to self-doubt, when it comes to anything in your life. But while I'm talking about that, and you can either turn down the volume and watch me work, or you can listen to what I've learned. But before you do that, right down here, right there's a red subscribe button. You hit that subscribe, hit a little bell button if you want to get notifications when we start doing videos, when one gets posted, and yeah, leave me a comment. Leave me a comment, leave me a suggestion, any of that kind of stuff, because, it helps me improve upon what I'm doing. So, I had a show this weekend, and to say the least, I did terrible. I did very, very poorly as far as sales go. It was a really nice show. You guys, I posted a video earlier on the scenery at Pomeroy Farm. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't my fault. It had a lot to do with conditions. One day it rained, the other day it was sunny. It was a Saturday and Sunday, and it was early in the season. I think they had some other shows throughout the county going on. And basically, that transitioned into not doing so great. I'll give you an example. Over 2 days, I made about $280. So, do the math. 2 8-hour days, $280, not so great. But you know what? I learned something. Hang on a second, let me adjust this out. I learned that this was my first time doing an outdoor show. And with my profits, I was able to pay for the admission or the space in my show, and I was able to pay for the pop-up tent that I bought in order to do the show. So, being my first outdoor show, I really didn't know what to expect. Well, what are you supposed to do? So I treated it just like I would an indoor show. And turns out there's other things in outdoor shows that you have to take an account for you don't in indoor shows, which is wind and rain and shade and sun and light and all that fun stuff. So I had a wind experience where my stuff decided to blow over in the wind, so I had to modify my setup. But once that was done, I really didn't have many more issues with wind. And when I say wind issues, I mean some people lost their tents. There were tents upside down, there were tents flying all over the place, legs in the air, people screaming, all that kind of stuff. The goats were even angry. Let's see. But the big thing that I noticed were there were a lot of vendors that were blaming other people. They were blaming the fact that the show had more than one jeweler, or the show had more than one person who sold soap, or more than one person who sold tea. And you know what? My thought is, if you're worried about competition, then make a better product. Make something that somebody else can't compete with. Make something amazing. I am not one to say that my stuff meets those criterias, but I am of the mindset that every failure is an opportunity to learn something new with more knowledge than you started with. It gives you a chance to try over, more experience. And a lot of the time that's easier said than done, because a lot of those type of sales failures or show failures lead to the thoughts of self-doubt. They lead to questioning whether or not your product is good enough, questioning whether or not you should be doing this in the first place. And, self-doubt's one of those things that can tear you apart. We're our own biggest critics when it comes to that stuff. Huge. I know I'm no stranger to that. But I also know when I'm doing it. I become aware of when self-doubt is kicking in, and maybe I'm not having my mind's not in the right place. So being aware of why you're feeling what you're feeling or how you're feeling is an important part of success. Because if we don't pay attention to our failures, then we're not going to learn anything from them. So, whereas a sale where you don't make a whole lot of money is considered kind of a failure. Is it really, though? Is it really a failure? I mean, it is if you decide to take it that way. But it could also be a success. A success in the way that one show, that one experience that you had was a pinnacle in your sales, your company, the way that you do things. And honestly, why wouldn't it be? If we don't have failures, let's take it this way. Kids playing sports. What happens when a sports team wins all the time? All the time. They've never experienced a loss. They don't really appreciate the win. They don't understand. They can't handle the loss if that ever happens. I had an experience yesterday during a softball game where I had a conversation with one of the moms on the opposite team, softball. And basically, our team came from behind and ended up winning the softball game by 1 point in extra innings. And I went to the mother that I was talking to, and I congratulated her team on a game well played. And it was her kids' team that lost, but it was a good game. Both teams had to fight, and it just turned out that our team won. And her response was to me telling her, your team had a good game, was, I'd like to believe you, but I disagree. They had errors, they had problems in the field, they had all these things that have to do with, whether or not somebody wins or loses a game. And I thought about what she said for a little while, and she's still talking. Eventually she says, this is the first loss that this team has had all year. All year, this is the only loss that they've had. This is going to devastate them. So my daughter's team has had several losses, couple victories, but those victories are that much sweeter if you know what loss feels like. And I told the mom that I understood her sentiment, but sometimes it's the losses that make the most meaningful impression, and not necessarily the wins. And she gave me this weird look like I was crazy, which, on certain days I may actually be crazy, which I'm okay with. But having an experience such as losing a game, losing a show, losing a deal, not getting a sales contract that you want, it's all kind of along the same lines. Is that if you try and you always win, you always succeed, that success isn't going to mean as much as it would if you've also experienced loss, failure, all those things. Now, I am no stranger to loss, failure, mistakes, as you guys have seen in the videos. I make quite a few. And one of the reasons why I put them in the video is to show you make mistakes. You make mistakes every day. And those mistakes can either mean something or mean nothing at all. I would rather have them mean something. Mean something so that, you can move on. You can have something fruitful to show of your successes. And you can teach your kids that sometimes failures, losses, they're all necessary. Going back to the show this weekend, some of the people that were complaining about the other vendors, how there were too many this or too many that, and it was the show's fault for getting too many of the same type vendors. Before the show starts, I will walk around and I will, you can call it scope out the competition, but honestly it's not that. It's that I'm making contact with each of the other jewelers, seeing what they do, how they do things, learn from their mistakes, make contacts, build a community, make friends. Because every single one of the jewelers, I think there were 4 other jewelers at the show this weekend, every single one of them was dramatically different from the next and completely different than my style. Now granted, my style is all over the place. I mean, earlier I cut out a belt buckle that I have no idea what I'm going to do with, but I did it, and I'll throw it in my stock bin. Right now I'm in the middle of making a necklace that I drew a design out for. All these things, making contacts, making community, building community, and all that kind of stuff goes into your success, because you can learn from somebody else's failures. We get too caught up in the us against them and competition and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a competition. Yeah, somebody can sell more than you. I've had it happen to me. A lot of people sell more than I do. But I don't depend on this for a living. I don't have any, inkling of what the heck I'm doing half the time, business-wise. I took business in college. I thought I was failing the entire time. It turns out I got an A plus, I think. And I thought to myself, if I do business and the entire time I think that I'm failing, maybe I shouldn't do business. But here I am. Business. It's business time. And I guess what I'm trying to say is the people who complain, the people who spend the time to tell you why it's not their fault or how it's somebody else's fault or why they didn't do as good as somebody else, why they want to complain, those people get the most attention. I had a lady at the show actually considering some of the complainers' advice on what to do next and how to do things. And I said this, I said, those people who want to complain, who do not offer any sort of reasonable advice or input on how to fix something, are probably the ones that we shouldn't be listening to. Because they complain, they make themselves heard, but at no point in time do they offer any kind of reasonable explanation or any kind of reasonable, fix to a problem. They're just there to complain. And, that's okay. You can complain. But as somebody who would rather work than complain, I pay attention to those things. I pay attention to what people say. I make my corrections. And I go from there. Because either you can complain or you can find out what the problem is and fix it. I would rather improve upon things. So, I'm sure this is a rant that no one probably listens to, but every chance you get, learn from your mistakes. Ask yourself, what can I do different? Ask yourself, what was my failure? What can I do to fix it? Every time you make a mistake, every time you have what you consider a failure, ask yourself what you can learn. I think Les Brown is a motivational speaker. I think this is credited to him. He says, it's either him or Eric Thomas that says, sometimes when you want something in life and you don't get it, it's not because you're not going to get it. It's not because you don't maybe deserve it. It's because you haven't learned something yet that you're going to need to learn to help you out farther down the road. And that one thing that you haven't learned yet that you need to learn in order to move on, that may save your life. That may save somebody else's life. That may be the one thing that you need to learn in order for your future business to be successful. That may be the one thing that separates you and somebody else from a competition, from sales, from hitting a deal, from success and failure. That one thing that we want, that we don't get. Maybe it's not because we don't deserve it. Is it we're not ready and we haven't learned it yet? So every chance you fail, take that as an opportunity to ask yourself, what do I get to learn from this? How do I move forward? How do I improve? Sometimes this kind of stuff, business or whatever, it doesn't matter if it's jewelry or life. Sometimes it's not about running. Sometimes it's not about walking. Sometimes it's not about skipping or hopping or any of that stuff. Sometimes it's just about crawling, making little gains, making little progress, and learning along the way. Since I don't depend on what I do as an income, but I do use it as some way to buy new tools, which is amazing. I have the opportunity to do this with relatively low overhead, which means that I can make my mistakes and I can buy my tools and I can do this as a hobby before I decide that I want to jump into it as business. And You know, I know not everyone else has that luxury. I'm self-taught, so you know I'm slow going as it. But the big thing is take everything that you do and learn from it. It's not somebody else's fault. It's your job to figure out what comes next. What do you need to learn from failure? That's pretty much it. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you made it all the way through this far, if not, they just missed the good stuff. I like to think it's the good stuff. You know, if you guys haven't already, please like, subscribe, leave me a comment, share an experience, come back for more, or don't, because you know what? I'm not the boss of you. So, you guys have a good day. Appreciate you watching. See ya.